So wherever you're at, just kind of come into your space, come into your body. And so we take a nice deep inhale breath and just drop in. And if it's comfortable for you to close your eyes, go ahead and close your eyes. And if not, just soften your gaze without a hard focus. Before you logged on to Zoom, before you came into this space, just take a nice deep inhale breath. And with your exhale, release any lingering worry, concern, distraction, and just come in. And so we start with the invocation, divine within me, earth below me, sky above me, and love around me. Whatever reveals itself in this workshop, in this moment, may it be for the highest good. And so as you come deeper into your breath, more present into your body, just imagine that from the back of your heart, there is this grounding cord. And allow this grounding cord to unfurl and connect to the earth's core. And as it connects to the heart of the earth, to that sacred fire. And as you hook in, you might notice that your spine straightens, yet is still soft. And just take another deep breath here. And just know that whatever rises up for you during our time together, that you are grounded, you are supported. And as we go through this process, whatever is not of service, whatever is not in alignment with your heart, that you just send it down that grounding cord as you wish. And so we're going to drop into the space of our heart. And in this space, I want you to imagine that there is this golden, vibrant, luminescent light. For some of you, you might start noticing the textures, the luminosity of your light. For some of you who cannot see it, just feel it, sense it. And so now I want you to imagine in your next breath, magnifying that light tenfold so that you feel it throughout your whole body. Beautiful. And in your next breath, I want you to imagine it 100-fold and magnifying and sending that light and that radiant being of energy to anywhere or anyone that just needs some more love and support in this moment. Beautiful. And now bring back your light into your heart. And just know that with each inhale breath, this light gets more potent and never diminishes with the exhale breath. And so come back to your breath, come back to that light in your heart. And whatever shows up for you in this moment during our time, if it gets to be a little bit too much, just go back and land into that light of your heart. And so as we come back, just know that you are grounded and supported, and you have your heart light with you. So just bring some gentle awareness to your body, to the space that you're in. And welcome back. So we did get blocked off, so I'm not sure if you heard all of that. But Zoom did crash on us. Like our power was so radiant, it went choo, it zoomed us out. So let's begin. So I want to share this quote by Shawnee Nichols for us today, and it reads, "Healing requires that we hold ourselves through incredible discomfort and doubt. But only when we engage with our healing process can we experience what we are truly capable of. And much of our potential lays wrapped in our wounds. So it's our job to get to the gifts we have been given." So much of what's going to show up for us today, and why all of us gathered in this moment, it's no coincidence that we're all here, is that we're really wanting to practice for ourselves this notion of activating divine love. And so, just know that whatever, my hope is that by the end of the workshop is that you'll come to embrace these gifts for yourselves, right? But also acknowledge your capacity to love is not contingent on how much love you have received in your life, right? And I think that's important for us to remember. And so, whatever has broken your heart, to meet with it with much grace and compassion. And I'll be guiding you through some reflection prompts and whatnot. But by the end, that you have a greater understanding about what divine love is. And so for me, I define divine love as working with alignment with your heart and your spirit. And as you do so, you start to deepen your self-love, and then that starts to reverberate out in all of your relationships, right? So for me, how this came about, or how this workshop came about of activating divine love, this is the intro version. There is a more extensive course that I do offer, but it came to me actually in a session that I received, and it was just those 3 words: activating divine love. I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means, but okay, we're gonna go with it. But I realized that all the work that I've been doing for the past 20 years had led me to this point, right? So I am a poet and performance artist. And one of my first poems is to Santa Perversa, the patron saint of everything love, erotic, and sensual. And in the poem, there's a prayer to Santa Perversa. And so folks, how they would do the prayer, and I'm thinking, whatever. But they're like, yeah, things started happening. I was like, really? Tell me. And so all of a sudden, folks were like having really wonderful dates and like marriages and babies. And I'm like, well, all right, I better be praying to Santa Perversa myself, right? Because I need. And so the entity of Santa Perversa had her own life. And I got to perform it about 10 years ago as a performance piece. And in it, I dressed as Santa Perversa, and I had people pin love petitions on the dress. And how I would ask people to write their love petition was to say, what's the kind of love that you want? And inevitably, people would be stuck in figuring out, I don't know. Like, that was a really big question for them to answer in that moment. It always struck me as interesting. I was very curious about that. I'm like, I wonder why is it we can't do that? Fast forward, I start my practice, and I'm needing to write my vision and mission statement and what I'm doing. And I was like, oh, actually, that prayer to Santa Perversa is the beginning of Olympia. Like, it's the beginning of like calling for yourself what you want and clearing out what doesn't work, right? Unhealthy loves or whatnot. And so that's where the idea of the Love Olympia came about as a modality. This is my own hybrid, creating that comes from, my, but also the notion of the limpias, just trying to bring in energy work and all of that. And so through the Love Limpias, I started noticing certain patterns and trends with my clients. And so all of that leads us to this moment. So what I'm sharing to you for you today are these little nuggets, right? That will help you be on your path and on your way. So I do tend to talk fast, so I will pause, but raise your hand or jump in or popcorn in what is happening for you. So I want you to start. This is our first reflection prompt. And again, if you want to close your eyes, you could do that. But I want you to go into a moment or into a memory where you felt loved. And by love, this is your own interpretation of that. Notice I'm not telling you who you were loved by, but just that feeling of being loved. And as you go into this moment and in this memory, I want you to remember that your mind does not pay attention to linear time. As you are in this moment, in this memory, where you felt most loved, your mind believes it's there. And as your mind believes it's there, your body is going to feel like it's there as well. And so start to notice what that feeling is. Start to notice maybe what part of your body gets activated when you remember this moment. Now, our very dear friend, ego, is going to want to come in right now and say, yeah, but. So just kindly tell them, it's okay. I'm just going to relish this moment for right now. I'm going to be in this feeling and remember what it feels like to be loved. So use all your senses. Really remember what that was like, that moment. And if any part of your body got activated with that moment and that memory, magnify that feeling again tenfold throughout your whole body. Cool. So as we start to come back, starting to bring more awareness, let's start to think about now in two separate columns, love is and love is not, based on this memory, right? Love is not, based on this memory, based on this moment, what is love and what love is not. And I'll give you 5 minutes to free write. I'll set the timer. And if you're all done sooner, just look up. And for those of you who are not using their video, I think you can use an emoji where it's like a thumbs up to just let me know when you're done. So again, based on this memory, start to create a column, love is not. I mean, 2 columns. All right. So I loved all your shares in terms of what is love and what love is not. You have a very clear sense of that based on what showed up for you, right? In this first moment, in this first memory. And so I start here because often it is a moment like this that starts to define for us our first love story. This is our original love story, right? So my original love story is, and if you go back to what you wrote out in your memory, or what those qualities or those characteristics of it, then you start to notice that maybe this is how you keep playing this love story in every interaction that you have. This is not just your intimate ones, but in every interaction, right? Friendships, siblings, parents, family members, or whatnot. And I would even say even your coworkers, right? Even your coworkers. So that when you are perceived, to use, I think it was Carmen's, when you're perceived to be selfish, but you're really self-focused, right? To be self-focused is an expression of how you're finding yourself, how you're connecting to your true self, but yet others might perceive you as selfish, right? And then will critique you for that, right? And then you're like, but wait, I'm just being me, right? And so I want to share this quote by Don Miguel Ruiz. He writes, all the drama we suffer in our relationship is because we witness so many lies when we are innocent. And so we use these lies to form our own story, right? And so he uses the words lies, but I would, we could also understand it as it becomes someone else's love story that we witnessed and we took it as our own. Does that make sense? Yeah, I see some nods. So in witnessing someone else's love story, we then start to model and create that for ourselves. And it's probably not ours. It's not our experience, but that's what we know, right? That's what we come to understand, right? And often in this experience, we're also being taught from a very young age that actually love is conditional. And it comes in the most innocent ways. And we probably do this with our nieces, our nephews, our children. But we probably say, hey, if you behave, I'll give you this, right? If you're good, I'll give you this. If you do this, I'll give you this, right? And guess what? We are training ourselves to have conditional love. It's an innocent act, right? But it's a moment of peace. If you do this, just I'll give you that, right? But nevertheless, it starts to create for us a belief system that I have to earn love. I have to do something to get it, right? And again, it's super innocent. So I want to go into Gary. Before I go into Dr. Gary Chapman's love languages, I want to share something that speaks to this, how we create these love stories. So in a case study that I had, I was with this client and we were, they were trying to understand why is it that I get into these really beautiful, loving relationships, but then it feels like the rug's pulled from under me. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a really curious thought. Let's explore that. And as we were exploring that, we did the same first exercise, talking about their first love story. And they realized that the person who they learned love from, right, the biggest, deepest, loving connection when they felt most love, was the same person who broke their heart. It was a parent. Yeah, right? And so let's sit with that, right? So the same person who showed you all the biggest love and when you felt most love is the same person who breaks your heart. That, we don't have language for that, right? As we're growing up, we really don't. And so we're trying to, come into a greater balance with that. And as we do so, then unknowingly, what was starting to happen with my client is that when they came into these beautiful relationships, that feeling of the rug being pulled from under them, it makes sense because it had happened before, right? It happened before. Cool. All right, so let's get into Dr. Gary Chapman's five love languages. So some of you might be familiar with this. I found it very funny that during the Oscars, Tyrese was talking about his love languages on the red carpet, and I was like, wow, okay, it's really become popular culture now, right? But what Dr. Chapman did was, again, with his clients and his case studies, found that there are 5 ways that we communicate love, right? And in these 5 ways, we have a way to communicate love, but this is also how we want to be loved. And this is what I like about his work, because it tells us not only about like, well, this is how I'm going to love you and how I'm going to show my expression and my love for you, but really this is how I want to be loved, right? And so the 5 love languages are, number 1, receiving gifts. Seems very obvious, but right, but it's the physical gesture of being gifted something and it's showing someone's care or appreciation for you. Number 2, quality time. That came up in our love is, right? Quality time. So being together, going out, hanging out, whatever quality time is for you, right? Number 3, words of affirmation. Supportive, right? Languaging or modeling of that. Number 4, acts of service. So things are done for you without you asking. Someone takes out the trash or washes the dishes, right? Very good. I love the steps. Yeah. Acts of service. And number 5, physical touch, right? Physical touch. So physical displays of affection and whatnot. So I would argue that we express all 5 to some extent, right? I don't think it's we only do 2, but there's definitely 2 that are like our love language. This is how I want to be loved, and this is how I show you my love, right? So I want you to go and rank for yourself your love languages from 1 to 5. Number 1 being your preferred love language, and number 5 being like your least one. I mean, you like it, you won't be like, ew, I don't want it, but just rank them all. All right. So as you understand the 5 love languages, you identified your top 2. And now again, you're thinking about those top 2. Are they in alignment with your original love story, or did something shift, right? So that's where we're at right now. So I'm going to expand a little bit more. So for me personally, in my relationship, I really had to learn this whole notion of quality time. I mean, yes, I yearn for it with my partner, but my partner and I have very different descriptions of what quality time is. And so for me, as an air sign, and I say air sign because I'm going to talk about the elements in just a little bit, I move quickly. I'm like, let's go do this, and then we'll go out to this, and then we'll do that, and right? And to me, that is amazing. My partner is a water sign, and they're like, can't we just hang? Why do we have to do all these things, right? Because that's too much movement, right? Water flows, but doesn't usually flow that fast, right? And so I had to understand that their love language is quality time. They want to spend time together, but they're not about doing all these things like I want to do, right? And so what would happen at the start of our relationship when they would not want to go do all these things with me, I would start to create this story that, man, they don't want to be with me. They don't like me. They don't like my things, right? And it started to like create something that wasn't even there, but that was my own story, right? That was my own story. I bring in the elements because I'm not going to go into astrology, but I think it's important to understand the element that you are, right? So if you're an air sign, if you're a fire sign, if you're an earth sign, if you're, did I say them all? Air, earth, fire, water. Yeah. So if we think about air signs, they're really about communicating. Wait, what did you say? What word did you use? What did you mean? Right? If fire signs are like action, let's do it. Let's go for it. Like literally all in, right? Fearlessness. Very spontaneous even, right? If we go into a water sign, they're definitely emotionally open, very creative, and they're very nurturing, right? And if we go into an earth sign, they're about trusting what shows up in the world. So if you say something, you better follow through. And also, they don't move as fast, and that's okay, right? Because if we were to determine how fast or how slow the earth moved, we would be falling off of this planet, right? So we got to honor the movement of the earth, the movement of the water, the movement of fire, the movement of air. And so I don't go into astrology, because if I did, then my partner and I would never be together. Right? But because I'm an air sign and they're a water sign, what it helped me think about is not so much that we're separate, right? But in fact, we're in a symbiotic relationship. Water evaporates, becomes air. Air moisturizes, becomes water, right? And so that helped me understand our relationship a little bit better, right? They're not there to do something for me, but we're there to complement each other. Does that make sense? Is that cool? The downside of the love languages is that it could be used to, for lack of a better expression, manipulate the love that you want. And I say it like this because often we would think that maybe receiving gifts starts to be like a barometer by having people show how much they love us. Oh, I didn't get that, but I got this, right? And then we start into that judgment, right? Or the quality time could be like, as I shared earlier, if I start to think, oh, my partner doesn't want to be with me, I start to think they don't want to spend time with me. But they do. They're just telling me very clearly, I don't want to do all those things, but I do want to spend time with you. Is there another way we can do this? Words of affirmation, the negative side of that is if we don't hear what we think we need, we think we're not being supported. But in fact, it might be offering some other insight, right? Acts of service, that you keep doing acts of service, hoping that you're going to get loved. That goes back to, I'm going to do something to get something, right? And lastly, the physical touch, that the only way I feel loved if someone's like physically engaging with me, right? And that's the only way I could be loved. So there is a dark side to the 5 love languages as well. And I bring that up because, again, we have to be very clear about our language, but most importantly, we have to be able to communicate and model how we want to be loved, right? So as you identified your first 2, I'm going to go into a little anecdote, and then we'll do some more work with the love languages. So I love when couples come to this workshop. Not many do, but I do love it when couples come because I think it's important. And I had a couple in the workshop, and we went through the love languages. And it turned out that one person in the couple, their top love language was physical affection. And the other person in the couple, their top love language was acts of service. So can you start seeing what might be a disconnect there? Maybe not yet. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So the person whose top love language was acts of service, I want you to guess, where do you think physical touch ranked on their list? 2, 3, 4, or 5? Just, you think 5? Okay. We have a 4. Okay. We have a 4, we have a 5. You can tell me that, oh, we have another 5. Okay. Okay, cool. I love it. I love that you used the chat. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. For those of you who guessed 5, yes, it was the last on their list. It was the last on their list. It's possibly going to happen, right, in this relationship. Now, the partner whose physical touch was number 1, they were paying attention to their partner. And they knew that their partner's preferred language was acts of service. So they kept all acts of service. Why? Because that they would get the physical attention. Does that make sense? Yeah. And when they realized this in the workshop, it was like light bulbs went off, right? And so this was an opportunity, right? To have the person whose preferred love language of acts of service, you know, whatever, we didn't get into it, but whatever was going on with them about physical touch or physical affection, that's something that needed to be addressed. But in the time being, what we offered is, could your act of service be physical touch, physical attention to your partner? Like, could you think of it in that way? And when they were like, oh, yeah, I could do that, then at least there was some meeting, right, of each other's needs. That makes sense? Yeah, we're good. So as you think about your top two love languages, I want you to write out for yourself, how is it that you tell people or express it or model it for folks to know, hey, this is how I want to be loved, right? So take some time. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I want you to reflect on those first two love languages and write out for yourself, how do you model, how do you express, how do you communicate? These are my love languages, right? And how is it that you do that for others? How is it that you do that for others? So I'm going to pause the recording here. So as we start to understand what are our two top love languages and thinking about our original love story, we start to notice some patterns or behaviors, maybe unconscious habits that have emerged for us, right? And so really why it's key to not only identify your love language, but also to express, share, or model that for others. And when others do it for you, like, how are you receiving that, right? How are you receiving that? And so one of the things that we have to understand that, you know, there's a way that we can maybe create an obsession when people don't meet us, right? We could also, but what I hope we get to understand is what Thich Nhat Hanh shares with us, that in true love, you attain freedom. And often when I work with couples, you know, sharing that line, like, they're kind of like, wait, what? What do you mean by freedom? Right? But really what we're getting at is that you get to be the fullness of you, right? You're not limited or constrained or trying to fit yourself in like a box to make their happiness, right? But that you get to be the fullness of you. That's to be that freedom, right? And when it's not feeling as full, right, then it's like a choice. Okay, I'm only going to share this part of myself with you, and that's okay. I made that choice, right? But if you want the fullness of me, sometimes it's going to take you being on the phone with me for an hour, right? I mean, I recently, I totally connect to this, what you shared, because for me, you know, when with my partner, you know, they were like the texter, they're like the master texter. I'm like, and I'm like the phone person. I'm like, call me, right? But then I was like, okay, I'm cool. Like, we'll text. And then I remember recently being like, you don't text like you used to, because those were fun. Because as a poet and a writer, I'm like, yeah, all script, all language, I'm into it. And so I was like, you know, you don't text as much anymore. And then the other day, they surprised me by saying, you know, I think I really need to call you more because of all this stuff that's in our current culturally, right? They're like, I think I need to call you more, like get on the phone and call you. They're like, I'm going to work at getting out of my shell, right? And I thought that was just so beautiful. And that came from them, right? And I was like, okay, cool, right? But also, where we are in our journey, like I also had to express what my needs are and what I wanted and how I want. And then I was like, I'll wait, but I need you to know this is what I need, right? So let's continue. Cool. So divine love, as I shared earlier, is working in alignment with your heart and your spirit, right? And as you do this, it's going to reverberate not only with yourself, but all your relationships, right? All your relationships. And so to do this, though, we have to meet what's blocking our access to that vibration of love in and of itself, right? What's in the way? What's the distraction? What's the story? What's the habit? What's the perception, right? And often what ends up happening is that we are working as much as we're, regardless of what our experience is with a spiritual practice or this notion of love as a frequency, as a vibration, we often are coming from a space of fear. And by fear, I don't mean as I'm scared, but by fear, I mean as a vibration that's very low, right? And so often that vibration will show up in ways of us wanting to be perfect, us wanting to be, we get overwhelmed or we get stressed. We get a little like hesitant and don't trust our instinct, right? And so in the Course in Miracles, it says you're either going to learn through love or you're going to learn through fear, right? And so that's the choice. Which one are you going to choose to go by? I love what Marianne Williamson says, that the experience of love is a choice we make, right? The experience of love is a choice we make. And again, here they're speaking to love in terms of that vibration, right? Of that frequency. And it continues, it's a mental decision to see love as the only real purpose and value in any situation. So until we make that choice, we keep striving for results that we think would make us happy, right? So, there's a way that you might perceive what is a perfect relationship, what is a perfect, exchange or whatnot. And then what you're not recognizing is that something is off, right? Something is off. So, how do we level up, right? What are two key aspects to divine love? So 2 key aspects are forgiveness and accountability. Forgiveness and accountability. And this is key, right? I'll get more into forgiveness, but with accountability, you got to just own up to what's yours, not what other people do, right? But what is yours? What is my part in this whole dynamic, right? That is showing up. And so these are some ways that you can level up to divine love, right? So we're down to the second to last thing on your worksheet. So 6 ways to level up. The first way is vibrational match. You just got to lift that vibration, right? Lift your vibration. So you could do this through, meditation, your own spiritual practice, your own personal development, right? Practices of gratitude or whatnot. But as you do this, you start to notice this vibration increasing in your life. And so guess what? Your divine match is going to meet you at your vibration, right? If you're single. But even if you're in a couple, your match is going to rise up and meet you, right? Or they're going to like vibe out, literally vibe out. I put it, if you scroll up to the top of the chat, I added the file there. And I also emailed you all before the class. Okay. Second, truth. And by truth, I mean your own true, your own authentic self, right? So the more you keep practicing this, the more you keep sharing this, the more you keep modeling this, people are going to respond accordingly. 3, trust. Trust your knowing and belief in your capacity to give and receive love. I think this one is really big, because often in that original, when I mentioned the ego wanting to come in and be like, yeah, but the yeah, but is like, but they broke your heart, or they do not trust anymore, or they, however you want to fill in the blank, right? And trust is big, right? Because often the follow through is not there. Often the languaging, sends like a mixed message, right? The languaging to the actions. So, but this is about you. This is about you. Number 4, surrender. To surrender is knowing that you don't need to do it all and you're supported, right? To surrender is knowing that you don't need to do it all and that you're supported. Often in our cultural upbringing, we are told not to surrender. That's weakness, right? But let's shift that. Let's shift that. Number 5, responsibility. Only take responsibility for what's yours, not for others. This often shows up in the work as we're trying to, in very loving ways, do something for others, right? But it ends up being like, oh, if they were just a little different. Oh, if they could just do this, right? Not quite fixing them, but you know what I mean? Like, just take responsibility for what's yours. And lastly, vulnerability. This is our pathway to divine love. Because in vulnerability, we are seeking belonging, love, and joy. And as we get to do that for ourselves, others will come along, right? Others will come along. Any comments or questions about those 6? Those 6 ways to level up? No. Okay. So let's go a little bit into forgiveness. So this is big because often in that original love story, there was probably someone involved either in that same story or shortly thereafter that did something. And a part of us is still not able to forgive. And as we forgive, what I want us to think a little bit more about is that I talk about it in terms of radical forgiveness because I'm thinking of that notion of radical the same way that Angela Davis talks about it, right? Getting to the root of it. And so we're trying to get to the root of it, right? And often our biggest block to activating divine love is this energetic weight of something that's not allowing us to rise up to that vibration of love. Is that making sense? So a way to think about forgiveness is that it's a conscious decision to focus on love and let the rest go. This doesn't mean that we are getting people off the hook for what they did, but we're not letting the energy of that moment weigh us down anymore. I love this thing that I heard recently from Deepak Chopra, that forgiveness is not an action or thought. It's actually a spiritual quality of healing. And that to me was like, whoa, right? A spiritual quality of healing. To think of forgiveness as a spiritual quality of healing, because it allows us to be in that vibration and frequency of love. It allows us to connect to our true self. And as we connect to our true self, we're able to connect to our higher self, to our spirit, right? And so if we get to understand that all relationships, even the clerk at the grocery store, even the post office clerk, even our most intimate, our family, our coworkers and children and whatnot, that all our relationships are assignments, right? Some of these assignments are lifelong and some of them are just for the moment. But in that moment, they're so expansive, right? In that moment, they're so expansive. So as we work through forgiveness, we then can come to love, right? So to think about love as an opportunity to create these spiritual relationships with ourselves, right? To think that love is also not neutral. It takes a stand. It doesn't waver. Like I liked how we started. Love is a yes. Love is certain, right? Love has no conditions, right? You all shared love shouldn't be conditional. Yeah, absolutely. Love has no conditions, right? Love is a participatory emotion, right? So if your love language is not being acted upon, but also reflected, how are you going to get that engagement, right? How are you going to get that engagement? And as we demonstrate love for ourselves, we learn that we could be lovable, and we learn to also express that love to others. Yeah. I'm feeling there's something shifting with you all right now. Something's happening. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. That's beautiful. So I want us to think about our new love story, right? I want us to think about our new love story. So at the end of the sheet, I write, what's your new love story? So given our journey, given some insights, I want you to imagine your new love story, right? And I bring in at the top of your page this quote by Bell Hooks. I know that there's a way to love that frees. I know that there's a way to love that gives life. And I know this even though I have not witnessed such love, right? And I think that's important because many of us have not. And if we have, we're very lucky. But many of us have not, right? And so as you're writing your new love story, I want you to be magical about it. I want you to be uplifting about it. I want you to think about, you know, what is it that you're wanting to call in beyond the 2 love languages? So just take a moment to reflect for yourself on this. Again, I'll give you 5 minutes on the clock, and I'm going to pause the recording as I do so. So give yourself 5 minutes to just free write the kind of love that you want. This is your new love story, right? This is your own new love story. So as you're finishing up, to think a little bit about, when it comes to love, where does the trauma lie? And if it's possible to identify what part of that trauma is yours, or what is part of that is inherited. Maybe whose love are you modeling? Maybe explore a little bit more when you are in an intimate relationship. When do you feel most authentic? And in any of your relationships, when do you feel most authentic? Maybe what are some new things that you can accept for yourself to help you activate divine love even more in your life? And, possibly even what are you ready to release, right? If you think about that original love story and your current love story, like, what are you ready to release? Right? What's no longer in service? What's no longer in alignment to that notion of divine love for yourself? So I know a lot of prompts there. I'll put it on pause. We have another 5 minutes. I'll pause the recording. So as we come to this space now, there's all this new insight and awareness that has come up for you, hopefully, as you finish this last part in creating your new love story, and to really come to a greater compassion and understanding to any trauma that may lie there when it comes to love, and how much of that trauma is your own, or how much is it inherited, or maybe that you are modeling someone else's love story. And so, and to really acknowledge and honor for yourself, when are you most authentic in your relationships? So as we come into this next part, I invite you to get comfortable. We're going to go into the collective love limpia. So I'm going to bring in some tuning forks. So if you want to go off screen, that's fine. But the vibrational healing love limpia is going to be recorded. And And so come into your space of comfort, come into, whether you're sitting down or lying down, but we're going to be here for a few minutes. So just wherever that space of comfort is for you. I'm going to bring in tuning forks as well. So you'll hear some chimes throughout the recording. I'm going to take myself off camera and we'll still be recording. And as we come into our bodies again, coming into our breath, I want you to reconnect to that light of your heart. And as you reconnect to that light of your heart, also reconnect to that grounding cord in the back part of your heart. And I want you to drop into the heart of your light, into that golden luminescent light. I want you to drop in your new love story. With just the love story. No conditions, no only if this happens, just the love story that you want. The one that you just claimed for yourself in this moment. And notice how that new love story and the frequency of that melds in with your heart light. And just let that be there for right now. Let it get juiced up with your heart light. And we're now going to go into a moment where we connect to something that may feel like the biggest heartbreak, the biggest loss. And I want you to connect to yourself of that moment. And as you encounter the self of that moment, your younger self, allow your younger self to share with you in their own language what it felt like to feel this heartbreak, to feel not loved, to feel so vulnerable and distrustful that you couldn't even think love was possible. Allow your younger self to speak to you in their own language, in their own words. And as they do, let them know that you are there to hear them, to see them, to be with them, to feel them. That you understand that this love story is not fixed. And remind them that there is something different and possible. And as your younger self finishes telling you in their own language, in their own way, what that heartbreak felt like, let them know that you're now going to take this from them so that they could be fully in that expression and vibration of love. That they don't need to hold on to that energetic weight or that story any longer. There we go. Good. And so send that energy, that energetic weight that was now gifted to you by your younger self, send it down that grounding cord from the back of your heart. And as you're sending it down to the earth, now send much love and light to anyone who caused that harm, to any individual or individuals who caused the harm or who perpetuated that belief that you're not lovable, that love is only conditional, that love is painful. That you are the one responsible to carry that love. And as you send much love and light to them, you're not taking them off the hook. You're just not allowing that energetic weight to be part of your life, part of your auric fields any longer. And so now allow the earth's fire to transform and transmute any offering that you're giving it. Any limiting beliefs that might still linger as we're coming to a close to this workshop. Offer it those stories that you've been modeling that are not yours, but serve the purpose. They serve their purpose. And so we thank it for it serving its purpose. And now we know it's no longer in alignment or needed for our moment now. So send it all down that grounding cord. And as the earth's fire transforms and transmutes all that you've sent down to it, it now becomes this potent energy of love. And so when you're ready to receive it, allow it to rise up through that grounding cord, filling the space of your heart. And as it comes into the space of your heart, notice how this new vibration of love and energy is melding in with your golden light, is melding in with your new love story. Notice those qualities, those textures, the vibration, the luminosity of this light now inhabiting the space of your heart. And as it's been filling the space in your heart, I want you to let it rise up to your throat and just let it serve that loving communication. Let it rise up to your head so that all thought becomes part of this frequency of activating divine love. And as it rises through the top of your crown, allow it to burst out through all your auric fields, making its way back through each of your feet, your ankles, your calves, your knees, your thighs, swimming between your hips, really healing that space of your womb, of your sacrum, of the space of all creation, of the space of yourself. And as it rises up through your belly, Let it meld in with your sacred fire so that all your relationships are honored and sacred. And as it comes back to your heart, and you've been filled up with this new energy, release that grounding cord. Beautiful. I really want you to notice what that feels like. Notice this new expression of love and vibration in your body, in your energy field. And know that you can return to it with just a breath, reconnecting to this moment in this memory. That you are an expression of divine love. And so as we come to a close, I want you to repeat this mantra after me. I see myself with eyes of divine love. Makes it easier for others to see me as love divine. Spirit loves me for simply being me. Nothing is greater outside my spirit. I am safe. I am worthy. I am whole. I am divine love. And so as you bring a nice, gentle awareness to your body, if you want, you could come into a fetal position, bending your knees, trying to lay on your side for a little bit, and just be held. Be held in this space. And as you're ready to make your way back, take a nice deep inhale breath. Use your hands to lift your torso up and come into a seated position. Bringing gentle awareness to your body, to your environment, to where you're at. And we come to a close. So this is the ending of the recording of Activating Divine Love, led by Reina Prado of Healing Queen. You can find me at Healing Queen _ on Instagram, or through my website, www.healingqueen.abnp.com. And I will bring this recording to an end, but our workshop is not ended. We have a few minutes. All right, thank you so much.